Hi, welcome to the Modern Human Podcast with your host, Wendy.
And Brenda. Hello, everyone.
Hey, guys. Today is Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Love Day.
Happy Love Day.
They say a Hallmark calendar, right? But it was actually based on somebody. I know you did that research. And we had a long history of our culture being based on relationships, right? And kind of this idea of marriage and having families and our ideas around that and values around that. And there are a lot. There's a lot of beliefs and what are the words I want for that? Expectations, yes, within that. And that's we're not going to dive into the politics and the morals and all of that. We really wanted to talk about the context of loving the self. And one of the things that we talk about in this podcast and often in all of our works is how everything comes from how we treat ourselves. It comes from the relationship with ourselves. So even our connection or abilities to heal and see and feel in alignment with the great I am, with who we really are, comes from this relationship and how much we're loving ourselves. Not how much, it's not like a value system. It's just like a practice. I'm going to call it a practice.
Yeah, and I feel like it's about, we talk about this new paradigm or shifting into the new paradigm of the new earth. And a lot of that has to do with shifting our relationship with this love expectation and really kind of taking responsibility that, you are in charge of your reality, period. And so, knowing that love within you and feeling that love or trying to get it outside of it yourself, even though you have a poor relationship with yourself or you're beating yourself up or you're insecure or whatever and you're wanting that filled out. It doesn't even work. We all know, if you're older, you all know that does not work. Right. Trying to get it outside yourself. Unfortunately, right? That would be so awesome, I guess, in some ways. I mean, I feel like people can remind you of that love that exists and you can feel love from people for sure. But if you don't feel that love, it's not sustainable. It's not going to.
Because their loving you is only going to show you the things that you need to look at within yourself, show you what you need to see and hear and feel and validate within your own self. So, for example, you could get really angry with the other person, and when it turns out it's actually them triggering a wound that you're the one who needs to address within you, right? So we have.
Yeah, part of duality is this mirror system with each other, right? Now, when you're with somebody and you're both interdependent and you're celebrating each other and you're experiencing love together, that can be really intense and pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine, because I haven't really experienced that. I mean, I experienced it with you, but not in a, intimate way.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, not with you. Anyways.
You're going to go back in and
yeah, I might edit this out, but if it's still in here, whatever. Enjoy. No, but it's important because it is about, because you can celebrate it. You can experience almost like a greater love together when you are kind of witnessing that light in each other.
And it's this responsibility or this knowing that you are also separate and that whatever is going on within you is yours and whatever is going on in the other person is sacred and theirs. So we're not enmeshed, we're not codependent, right? We're not engaging in these expectations or these judgments. We've entered into a new way of being, which is what we're here for, to talk about these new ways of being and different ways of being. And one of those things I feel like in being responsible for yourself and loving yourself unconditionally is really owning this perspective. How I'm going to frame this is walking your own path, following your own rhythm. I think, how did I open it? I kind of said when I connected with Spirit this morning about our podcast, it was about walking the unbeaten path and really the courage that it takes to walk your own walk. And we can talk about that all day and all night, and yet experiencing it is something very different. It really does take courage and love and compassion and grace and power even to say, you know what, I get it. I'm different, because we all are different. And this is what feels right for me. I'm going to do it, even though, let's say, it goes against everyone else or somebody else doesn't like it, especially somebody that you are in a partnership with. And they're like, well, I don't agree with you and I don't like it. And so then we question ourselves and we're like, oh, well, maybe it's not the right thing for me, right? And so being able to go within and ask yourself,
Yeah. I was just kind of thinking about what you're saying, and I feel like a lot of people in relationships, I mean, it usually is, and I see this a lot. It usually is one person kind of controlling what's going on, like the environment in their home, or expectations of behavior, like how often you're going to clean, when you're going to cook, the expectation. You create this little like little world inside it in
Mhm.
home, and I hear a lot of people say that I can't really do that. My husband won't really be down with that, or if I follow my own rhythm, the expectations of the relationship where you can't follow your own rhythm, or you can't even kind of take care of your own needs because the other relationship, male or female, right, has these expectations on them. And so I feel like what we're talking about is really shifting the paradigm of relationships, period, because it takes a really strong person to say, hey, I don't want to make dinner every day at 6 p.m. That doesn't always follow my own rhythm. I mean, that's, and I know that has turned things up in some households, where people have advocated for those things. And the other person is just lost because they like the certainty of the 6 p.m. dinner. And in some ways, I feel like the society feels like we're failing as family structure and relationships because we are shifting all of these rules. But in fact, I would argue that this is necessary, to accommodate individuality for the culture eventually to get to a place that where we could benefit from such individuality, like unique solutions, unique ideas.
Well, and
things like
breaking
that.
away from that like the well beaten down path, right? Like that path is very easy. We have to own that. It is very easy. It's already smoothed out. It's already laid out.
The expectations are very clear.
And
this is what a woman does, what a man does,
right, or this is what a person does who's like this, or if you want this, then you're going to do this. Like there are so many things that if we don't spend the time going within, that we just go along with that well-beaten path. And that's what I feel is going on inside of many of us, is that we're meeting up with, well, this doesn't feel right for me. I don't really like this. And I'm going to be honest, I feel that 99% of the time is that it was me. It's me thinking, well, I don't want to upset my partner because they're going to be upset, when in fact, when I just communicated, hey, listen, I know that we've always done it like this, but this isn't working for me anymore. And maybe I just had some grace and let my partner be upset about it, which is fine. They're allowed to not like it. And I can be graceful in that and say, and I totally get that. I'm changing it up. And this is still what works for me. It often works out.
Right. So you're saying the key to that then comes down to communication skills, awareness of self
partly,
first,
I think,
and then communicating that in a communicating that in a healthy way.
Well, and maybe even noticing first, like, I mean, I know
Plus,
you said this, yeah.
Noticing
though that like maybe I'm not as happy as I want to be, or I don't feel as free as I want to feel. I don't know why I feel so passionately that we need to show up more for those conversations. We kind of like go along on the roller coaster of it all, or the well-beaten path, and we're just like mad, or we're just upset, instead of like noticing. And I know we talk a lot about this in this podcast, of like breaking each moment kind of down into the preciousness or the opportunity that it really is for us, of like, hey, like, what do you want? What feeds you? Because that's part of it too. If I'm feeding myself, I'm no longer dependent on outside forces filling me up, making me or helping me feel loved. I'm loved and supported inside. And so then everywhere I look and everywhere I go, I'm loved and supported too. It's great. Not always easy. And sometimes they mirror not so positive things, and that's okay too.
Yeah. It's funny.
That's so funny.
I don't know.
No, I feel like
it's funny to me that, your positive attitude, like you really have shifted in that way where you really do see conflict as a good thing.
Yeah.
Like you really do. That's like in you now, like integrated into you, where it's effortless. I still have to kind of work on that. No, I do always see the I do trust the universe enough to know if any conflict is arising, I'm moving through something and it is helping me in my journey.
Yeah.
I do feel that way, but you have a positive attitude, I think, in that way. Maybe.
I like it.
Isn't this great? I'm feeling shame. Anyways, that's.
Well, no, but I feel like that's the unconditional love. That's the falling in love with yourself that we all want desperately. And I feel like that's the distortion that, like, well, if somebody else can love my shame or my rage or my anger, then I'll feel better. I'll be healed. And it's just, I don't think that that's how it works. I genuinely feel that if we can do that for ourselves, if we can unconditionally love ourselves in that way and look at maybe my ugly parts with such reverence and joy of like, oh, this is this part of me that actually needs and wants more love, not less. And it is hard sometimes because I don't know, I'm not sure what the belief is, but it's almost like maybe I think it's bad or I'm just ashamed of it, you know? And so slowing down and saying, no, this just rolled on by me, or I just moved through something that felt really uncomfortable. And my knee jerk is to get off of it. Oh, get me out of here. This is gross. My stomach got upset. I just like, and so then I pull it back, right? I'm going, no, wait, what the heck was that? That was a whole lot of something. And who knows? I know last week it was like my anger at the driver or whatever, but it's like showing up for, you know, whatever is going on inside, whatever I'm meeting up with that, you know, I don't know, that like excitement. When you fall in love with somebody, I mean, it is like your whole world like changes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the colors are brighter, and that's like so real. Like that's a real thing. And they say like your brain, like up here all changes, and the neurons
The chemistry
find new
changes.
pathways and like all this awesome stuff. So imagine being there all the time. Well, that to me takes effort.
Yeah.
And practice. So like showing up, and I feel like that's like a conscious effort that I've been like, I'm gonna be madly in love with myself. What does that
Yeah,
look
and I
like?
feel like that's that spiritual practice too. And that's not moving out of those feeling spaces, but in some way, I feel like in a psychological way, it'd be like you're super conscious, like you're very aware of your subconscious in the moment. Sometimes though, getting to that place where you can kind of hold your subconscious, your conscious, and your super conscious all at one time, like being aware of all three, takes practice, you know?
Yeah.
So, because, you know, for me, you know, moving through some of the energies of this month has been pretty intense for me about, you know, moving into this heart space. And that's partly what this painting is about. We're going to show you it here, actually show it to you here, but I didn't show it to them last week because it wasn't 100% done, but is, you know, when you're in it sometimes, you know, you're moving through it, you don't necessarily know that it is even your subconscious. You just think it's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just think this is life.
This
and life
person's
sucks.
angry, you know, this
Right,
person's
I'm not liking this, or I really, you know, triggered all over the
matters.
place and I'm
That
unhappy
matters.
everywhere. Right. And not aware of, oh, this is I get to a place, like I have gotten to a place where I can recognize that it's my subconscious for sure. Or like, I wouldn't even say it's subconscious. It is your subconscious, but it's like a part of myself that needs my love. Like a part of myself that still feels neglected or rejected or whatever's coming up. Right. And then do it. But in getting to that place, but I can see that as you practice moving through this, you're like, yes, this must be my subconscious, right? Or these must be parts of myself.
Yeah, and I think like you're reminding me, it's not so much about being like excited or enjoy every moment that I meet up with something, but it's like almost like I meet up with whatever it is, and I just let it have a voice. I just let it be. It's like I'm not judging because I'm mad. I mean, I'm mad. I mean, I'm legit like mad. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm like so mad. I'm like, I'm mad. And I'm like, rawr. And I'm like, you know, in it. And it's like, and I'm like, yeah, isn't that great? And I do think that inside. I'm like, no, this is my messy, authentic self. And I feel like I move through it so much quicker because I can surrender into that moment of realness. And yes, taking responsibility. I don't want to harm myself or others in the process of that. And that took some practice. So it wasn't lashing out in anger at others. The car person aside, whoever you are, I love you so much. And that had nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. Please forgive me. I forgive myself. Right? because again, that's a safe place. Like driving is an experience where you can express that in this really messy way, that no one sees, right? Like it is, so like taking responsibility for that.
Yeah, I didn't judge you.
No, I appreciate it.
But I do feel like this week, especially, or this part of February, even though it's Valentine's Day, regardless of that, it has been about moving more into the heart space. And though this year is tremendously about that, and we talked a lot about that in our New Year's video, because it's like being a brand new baby. But it does take courage to really follow your heart. And here's the thing. Following your heart, that's like some weird saying that, ooh, it's like some, even that's hallmarky. But really what that means is like, just like St. Valentine, he had the courage to just really kind of follow his own path and be weird. And he was totally rejected, not just by others, by thousands of people, where he's scared for his life. And we all partly hold that in our own akash, being different. There's witches obviously that have been hung and burned, and even being slaves, because being different, you were a subclass, or we are all carrying that in our DNA, or even being Jewish and having to deal with the Holocaust. So being different outside of whatever the majority is saying has with it this real fear, partly because it is in our akash, our part of our history, our DNA, our genetics. So it does have this tone of risk, and just kind of acknowledging that. And it's not just one way to feel it, because you might know and feel that you're different, and that it's not about knowing really so much as it is about actually doing and saying. There's a huge difference, because those of you that are watching, you're a little bit different. Does anybody else know? And that's really what we're talking about. Because I feel like we all know that we're different, but we just don't really share that. And so in this way, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about aligning our throat chakras with how we really feel. So is that completely
Well,
fluid?
we can even back that up too, like, of course this, but like the first and foremost of like your thoughts. Are your thoughts in alignment with who you really are? And then are you speaking them, right? Like noticing when your thoughts are harsh towards you or others, you can feel the frequency of that, and it feels off. It truly does, from your heart. And it doesn't mean to take away from or invalidate that you're angry or that you're hurt or that you're scared. Those are really important things. But again, are those thoughts around those feelings in alignment with who you really are? And then what are you speaking? What are you speaking to yourself out loud? What are you speaking to others? How are you resolving the conflict that is coming up? Because if you're here right now, you're having a little bit of conflict. Okay, it's happening. We're in it. And it's okay. And practicing that, having grace, having forgiveness for yourself and others, because we're figuring this out, and we are works in progress. We're allowed to be. And then behaving, moving forward with this heart space, which is again the great I am, right? And then we're moving down to our chakras. So like, are we showing up? Are our actions in alignment? Do we like what we're doing? Right? Not like, that sounds oversimplified, but you get it. Is it all in that? Sorry, did I take you off track of where you were?
No, yeah, but
Sorry.
because when you say alignment, to your higher self, I feel like that is such an intellectualism of it, where it's like, and then there's it with it kind of has this like we should be, we should be speaking positively all the time. We should be being loving all the time. And I think ultimately we get there, but I don't know if we can start there, like almost like, I feel like, especially because maybe just for me, and I'll speak for me, but from my perspective, it's like really beginning to share how you feel. It might not be always loving, or because it might be really just authentically showing us those parts that need love, right? Like I'm talking about kind of stepping back and just saying, hey,
Yeah, I guess
before you can even, it's almost like, how do you really feel about anything? How do you, really feel about, I don't know, like, how do you really, I mean, I feel like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I think maybe I do. And if I can use my example from our last podcast of just like with the driver, right? Like realizing that this driver was not aware and she blows through the stop sign, right? So it is this authentic thing of like,
how do you really feel?
What
So
the
have you
heck?
explored that heart space?
Right.
Like, how do I really feel? Well, I feel like I'm so mad at people that are unaware of my needs.
Right. And that was only after I already, let's say, badmouthed her and hated on her for a second. Some version
Right.
of that. And that's really aggressive. I don't know if it was that big, but it was definitely more aggressive than warranted for sure, because underneath it was that trigger, right? And I feel like maybe that's what you're talking about, like that messiness. And it's true. Like I have to be messy and real.
Right.
And yet, let's say that this person was right in front of me and we just walked next to each other. And let's say I called her a bad name or something, like a bad name. Like I called her a name. And I'm now accountable for this. So now it's like the alignment, like, right, my thought was like, she's an idiot and probably I should yell at her because she's wrong, whatever. So I'm thinking this and innocently, right? I'm not really aware, right? Like breaking this down because of course I did that. Okay, that happened. I actually had the thought. It was there. And when I'm calm, I can acknowledge, wow, I would never want anyone to ever feel that way. I would never want to say that to myself or others.
And that's in alignment with your higher self. That's your intention. That's like your moral compass
Exactly. And yet I need to acknowledge that I'm that. Well, where is that going? Right. So that's what I was kind of talking about last week. Well, I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to unravel that. Like I'm upset with her. I'm hating on her. Again, that's kind of a strong word, but I'm disliking her behavior and her as a person a lot. Like, and unravel, okay, so I keep going, and I'm like, yeah, because she's not even aware, and she's like this, and I'm noticing, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, man, unraveling, and it took me some moments, and I realized, right, I think I said it took me a couple hours, and I got to this place where I'm like, okay, underneath it all was like, oh, I'm angry for early life experiences where those around me that I would have liked to have taken care of me, been aware of me, nurtured me, cherished me, were innocently unaware, oblivious, right? So is that kind of what you mean, like the messiness of the journey of like unraveling all that? Because right, at any given time, we could be in any layer of this journey to the heart of, let's say, the trigger, the wound, the pain. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and just really... Because I feel like naturally, if we just begin at the heart, at your heart, wherever you're at, that whoever's listening, right? Or at your heart or at my heart, of really saying, how do you feel? How do you really feel and see the situation? And then communicating. I feel like that is like the beginning space.
Right, but if we're not, I mean, I guess, I really want to like break this down because it's like, for me, it's like in the nuance, let's say when I finally got to the heart of the pain and I went, oh my gosh, I can feel that. Like, that's it for me. Mm-hmm. And then realizing the belief systems and the thoughts within me that said, well, you have to be around people who aren't aware. And I went, I'm sorry, what? Where did that come from within me? Well, and I could see, well, because we've always been around people who aren't aware, who aren't emotionally mature. And I went, oh, that's fascinating. I'm like, and of course I'm going to validate myself because I'm showing up, and I'm like, that makes sense. So then reconciling those thoughts within me about all of that, right? Of saying, you know what, Brenda, all of that makes a lot of sense. That's really how it was for us. And we're allowed to be around people who are emotionally mature and aware. And we worked really hard on creating a safe world for us, in here and out here. And then I kind of said, like, I kind of repaired it within myself because I talked a lot to myself about how proud I was, how I just kept showing up every day with such courage and love for myself, and just, healing some of that of like, oh yeah, this is really a great place to live. I love me. Is that?
Oh yeah, no, I totally get where you're at. What I feel like there's so many people not there. There's so many people not even in that space of awareness of even what their needs are. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and without all the spiritual tools that we might have, or all the awareness that we have. So how do we help them? You know?
So kind of like in the messiness of like,
In the messiness of having
I'm
no
mad,
tools,
just really overwhelmed. I want
and
to.
they're just right, yeah. They're just waking up right now, and they're might be feeling things that are so overwhelming, right? Because it could feel like it's everywhere for them. Because then I feel like that's what's happening. It's like everywhere for them, and they don't have these tools. Like where would you suggest? That's what I mean. So it's almost like starting with creating a safe space for your heart. Do you feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you feel for you? Like, is that kids? You said you've been really working in your heart this month, and
Yeah, I'm
integrating
trying to align
through
it
your
with my throat
thoughts. You said
chakra.
like I'm sorry, your words, not your thoughts, but because you kind of opened it with you were speaking in alignment.
Yeah,
with
because
your
people
heart.
pleasing, it's something that people don't talk about, but people pleasing really affects your throat chakra the most. And I don't know if you know that, but it's like people pleasing affects your throat chakra because you're pretending to be something that you're not, or you're saying something that's not in alignment with your heart, but you are saying it anyway. So it actually doesn't necessarily affect your heart chakra the most. It actually affects your throat
So if
chakra.
you're saying, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. I want to do that," and then inside of you, you're
You
going,
don't wanna do
"I don't really want to do that." Right.
So you're speaking, so you're people pleasing. So it's not really how you feel or see something, but you're doing it to kind of go along with, or to appease, or for your own safety. There's the reasons why you're people pleasing, I'm sure. But anyway, so kind of moving through that is aligning, like, how do I really feel, and showing up in that space. So for me, I mean, I would say, being a recovering non-feeler, or somebody that felt like being emotional was stupid. And such an important component in spirituality, and even for healing and everything, right? I would say creating a space to feel, and that could just be at first just with yourself in your home, like in taking it, like it's dedication, like dedicating time to that space. So meditating, praying, whatever, or journaling or whatever, just really getting to know how you feel, and then slowly, and then allowing yourself to express it, and you don't have to do it with other people. You can just do it by yourself at first, and then eventually you'll get comfortable where you can start repairing your relationships outside of yourself. Yeah, because I do feel like this month especially, it's going to start, people are starting to awaken. You might not know some of the feelings that you're feeling, and you might not have the tools, or even so just letting yourself have those experiences to kind of uncover the nuances of them, because Brenda was demonstrating what to do, really. Like, you have to let yourself feel it and get the dialogue down. So how do you really feel? And then what to do with that, and then how to shift it into a different story. Because it's almost like nothing's real. It's just it's like, these are the stories that you're telling yourself. And that's how you change your reality. You start noticing your stories, and then say, does it have to be like that? Oh, no, it doesn't. I just think everyone's out to get me, but that's not true. Not everyone in the universe is out to get me. That's silly.
And I actually like to play in that even the other way. So like, what if everyone was out to get you? Like, what if everyone didn't love you? Well, like, in showing up for that fear within me, and I know that was part of like opening our practice, was like, I was like, but what if they don't like love me? What if they don't like me? Which is obviously this deep trigger of like how it felt for me when I was younger. Like, I didn't feel loved and supported a lot. And so, kind of having the conversation with myself, like, Brenda, that makes a lot of sense. And that's really scary. And what if they don't? What if no one loves you? What if nobody likes what you have to say, and nobody cares to hear from you, or whatever? What are you going to do? And kind of like unraveling all the nuances of that. And really, and believe me, it was a lot of moments, okay? A lot of years of moments, and just keep going till I got to this full circle experience with it, where I was like, I'm not going to do anything different. They cannot love me. I let that go. I'm going to show up loving them. I'm going to show up loving myself, because that's what I can control. That's the choice I can make for myself. That's what aligns with who I am, right? And that wasn't easy to get to, and it was effortless. I mean, it wasn't, it took this energy and this effort of, and then, feeling so much doubt and shame and guilt and unworthiness. And like, those are not, easy things.
And I feel like that, bringing that back to the courage it really takes to navigate your heart space, because your heart is both light and dark, right? So you can't have the light without the dark. So, it's like your bandwidth, if you want to experience more enlightened states, you have to kind of be able to experience these other sides of it, So the courage it took that for you to even experience those
And maybe
things.
that's partly what you're talking about is, right? Like, give the courage to go into the feeling space to even name, right? It's not
Yeah.
easy. And it's interesting that you're bringing that through to me, because it is one of the things I've been noticing in the last couple of weeks for this month. Is like, it's fascinating to me how many things I do that I don't really notice until I really notice, right? Like, I can't think of one right now, but I have had a couple of experiences where I was like, oh yeah, this is like something I've just always done. And like, can we consider a new or a unique way of repairing it or changing it?
I have an example of that. Like, I feel like one of my habits is just like blaming other people when I have an experience with them. Like they didn't behave in a healthy way. So I'm judging. Okay, whatever. I'm moving through this. So I'm getting messy. And, instead of just kind of writing them off, like, all right, whatever, that's where they're at, and, whatever. But in noticing that I do that a lot, everywhere, instead of noticing, just recognizing that basically that I have that there was a need there for myself, really, and that it was my responsibility to communicate my needs with these people. So is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like an old habit.
Yeah.
And it's like so inbred in me. It's just like, nope, I just kind of turn and kind of avoid and deny in some ways. But I'm not even knowing that I'm avoiding and denying.
Right. That's kind of what I'm trying to highlight. Like, we're not conscious of these things, and this is why we have so many.
And so I just don't ever say, and I kind of in my head tally like this person did something wrong, instead of, no, they actually didn't do anything wrong. They're just being themselves. And if my boundary was crossed, because that's what happened in all of these situations, then it's my job to communicate. And I'm like, oh shit, it's actually and that's uncomfortable. If you really, take take away the blame and actually say, hey, actually, it's my responsibility. So I had to do a lot of, I had to be humble, and I liked blaming better, like it's their fault. They're just, whatever. However, I don't know how I saw them, but I don't even know if it was fully judging them. It was just more like whatever, not even knowing that the need was communicating my needs and my boundary, because my boundaries crossed. Because I didn't even know that was actually what healthy communication looks like with people in general, whether it's a partner, and that's why it's coming back around to communication in relationships, any kind of relationship, where then it's like, oh, so then. So it was so ingrained in me never to talk, because again, my throat chakra. But then I went to several different people this last week where I communicated boundaries being crossed, and in a healthy way, just saying, hey, this is how I felt, and it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable.
And so worth it, right?
And so worth it, because then my needs are. I actually feel heard, and I'm taking responsibility. So I'm taking care of myself. And of course, everyone is accommodating and, apologetic or wanting to repair it or whatever. So even the stories in my head, I was still always telling or talking about these like before I communicated the need, right? I was still participating in the story where it's just like people ignore me or crossing over my boundaries or whatever, instead of taking responsibility and saying, hey, wait, no, I get to be the one that stops that. By communicating, that's the only way to stop it, is right. So then I communicate all these different people. I'm talking to a lot of people. I was getting people pissing me off. Okay.
And it's so important to me when having that conversation with yourself to not have any judgment of yourself, meaning like you learned that somewhere. So somewhere along the lines when you were learning how to set your own boundaries, someone violated that. And again, there's no judgment of the person who did that. It's just that did happen. That's how you learn that skill. You learn that skill somewhere. Can you just not judge it? You're not good or bad. They're not good or bad. And just own where you are at. Oh, wait, I could actually speak up. I could actually not view someone through a lens of negativity or anger.
Or blame.
Yeah, right.
Because they might not even, in one or two of the cases, they didn't even know that happened.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not even, so there's no truth, like, they did this, thing, because they weren't even aware that even took place. And just being mindful of the stories that we tell. And so then the reality that we create for ourselves. And then the prison that we customize for ourselves. And it takes time. It really does take time and awareness, coming back to that, of just really, how do you feel, and awareness of those things. And then the tools, you do need tools. Like, I didn't know that I needed, if it wasn't for her, like, she was like, you should be communicating. I was like, that's really a thing? That's a thing? You're supposed to, well, that sounds frightful. And so I'm not doing that.
I feel like I keep hitting your painting.
You do. You keep hitting my painting.
Top of your painting, and maybe the painting's like trying to engage with us, the new world, right?
I think that's a perfect example. I was like, what's wrong with her? She keeps hitting my painting. But I never said anything. I did never say anything, and hence, right?
Part of the pattern.
Part of my pattern.
You were
I'm a
allowed.
work in progress.
You were allowed to speak up. You were allowed to say something. Right? So starting wherever you're at, not judging that, bringing the most amount of love that you can, of grace, and
I do feel like this, and not to make full sweeping statements because it's not everybody, but in our culture, I do see that a lot. It's hard for people to receive. It's hard for needs to be met, for me to even say, hey, Brenda, can you move, you hurting my painting. Like, I feel bad. Like, I feel bad for saying, so I don't say it. I didn't say it. You witnessed it. You just experienced that. I didn't say it. And I was just like, no, I'll just take it. The painting will be fine. Like, I'm having these. I did have that conversation. So I feel like in that way, it's because there's a kind of like, I'll just take responsibility for me, but it's like there's shame in receiving, of really being seen and heard, because that was hurt in my past, right? But I see a lot of people having a hard time that have never spoken up, even in their relationships. If their needs aren't being met in the relationship, they've never communicated them, typically. But there's also shame in receiving, like, you know what I'm saying? Do you feel that way?
Right.
Like, overgeneralizing.
It's all, no, I mean, and I think that that's a really good conversation, because it's like, to me, if I were to unravel some of that, it's like, you exist, you matter, you deserve to take up space and have your energy, your ideas met, meaning your precious painting, which is precious. You're allowed to protect it. I wasn't really that aware of it. I was being like the driver, right? So you're allowed, like, if we don't figure out how to navigate in this, then we are going to just, we're not going to be our whole being. Like, we need to fully be here. And that, I mean, somebody who's had to practice speaking up too, I mean, it's like uncomfortable. I'm like, well, and that's straight up.
I feel like you're hurting my pain.
I think, like, right, as if I'm apologizing that I have a feeling
existing,
right,
saying it a certain way.
Those wounds are real, and so, like, that would be like one thing I want all of us to know. Like, we are allowed and meant to take up space, and I mean energy space, like physical space. We are meant. I don't over somebody else. I'm not gonna, lay on top of you, but we exist here together, and that does matter. And I do want to say, I know I'm talking a lot about nurturing ourselves, because I feel like that's an area that's so out of balance. And I know I say this often too in our podcast, but it's important that while I focus so much on the self and the relationship that we have with ourselves, we are meant to commune. It's almost like I get to work on myself, and I get to work on speaking up for myself and noticing myself. And then I'm going to work out the nuances in, let's say, conflict with you. And we're going to figure it out together in that physical reality, because the community who is in our world does matter. And I don't want to take that away too,
Yeah, no, I feel like that's such a great point, because we are moving more into community. We need our communities. That's been broken, We used to have tribes, You know, we all have that in our DNA too. Like we miss our tribes, we miss the community that, you know, none of us, I mean, I'm sure there's some communities out there, but I definitely feel like we're moving more into a consciousness of just needing and wanting that. And that takes first repairing and becoming aware of what your own needs are. So that way the community can help you repair the rest of that. And though that might take some time, it's definitely worth the journey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we want. We all just want to be loved.
It's so true.
Especially on Valentine's Day.
Sure. Why
Sure.
not?
Any other day. Who cares? Single, married, anything in between. It's all about just really receiving the love that you are, you know,
For sure.
every day, this day and every day. In honor of St. Valentine. Cheers.
And all those who have chosen love along the way.
Oh, chosen love in adversity with the fear of dying, you know. And I do feel like it does feel like that when you first enter your heart space. It feels like you're gonna die. So just in honor of that.
Yeah, who doesn't want to go there? Let's go.
Let's go to that.
There's something about that too.
Yeah.
Because it's so vulnerable and precious, and yeah, for sure. And worth it. It's so worth it though. You never feel like that, but then it's so freeing. It's
Yeah. So, you know, dedicate time for yourself to, you know, get to know your heart and who you are. You know, it's so important, and how you feel. And hopefully you can be brave enough to start sharing that with others. Share it with here, share it down below, how you're feeling and what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a safe community. So
yes. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. I love you.